The internet. Why the internet? Why do we say this is the best place to start a business? Why do I focus on the internet? Because the internet is the greatest money-making opportunity in history. And I mean that seriously. You might think this is all hype. It's not hype. There's a lot of reasons why, and I want to go through some of this. I want you to understand why you need to stay focused on this. First of all, the internet is not in and of itself like an answer. I mean, it's not the magic answer. It's not, the internet doesn't make you money. The internet is simply a medium of communication. And a medium is a way to convey information to people. So radio is a medium, television is a medium, newspapers are a medium. They're all mediums, and so they're ways to reach people. Okay, collectively normally called media, but I used the word wrong there. So it's a medium. So it's another way to market to people. So we could run the same ad on radio or TV or the internet. The difference is the cost of creating an ad, the cost of marketing and test, our ability to control everything. So one of the great things about the internet, and there are a lot, is that let's say you want to start a business, which is why you're here. Why do we want to start a business online? Well, let's look at what can happen. We could open up a business online for almost nothing. This is really important because if you wanted to open up a business, and let's call it in the real world, in the offline world, what do you need? You need either a store or an office, which means you have rent, right? So we got to rent a place. We've got to pay every month on that, and you got to have insurance, right? And you got to have utilities, right? You got to have gas and light and heat and whatever, cooling, all that kind of stuff, right? But you have those automatically if you're running this from your house. There's no need to do anything else. So we need to have those at a minimum. Usually you've got to buy some kind of furniture or fixtures. You've got to, oftentimes if you want to have any kind of size or be open when you're not there, you got to have employees, and you got to buy all kinds of fancy stuff related to this. You also, in many cases, internet or offline wise, you must have inventory of your own, which means you got to put a lot of money out and capture this inventory and stock shelves and everything else, and then you have stuff that gets obsolete and goes to waste. And all of those things are required the way we used to think about starting up a business. And so in starting up a business online, we don't have to do any of those things. And the other thing we don't have to do, in this case, many times people starting offline, they buy some kind of a franchise where they're paying big fees and big royalties. You're not required to do that online. Now, I have nothing against franchises, and they can be one of the greatest ways to start a business because they give you a turnkey model. But unless you have $50,000 or $100,000 or $1 million in the case of McDonald's, you can't go start a franchise because you can't afford to do it. Online, we get to start without any of these. We don't need a storefront, we don't need insurance, don't need utilities, don't need furniture, don't need employees, don't need inventory, don't need to have a franchise. We get to avoid all of those things as part of this internet opportunity, because here's what we need to actually get started online. We don't need, as I said, all of this other complicated stuff. They're just some basic things we need that make this really simple as a way to start a business. So we can start a business online with these basic things. We need a website, which means we need pages that are in what's called HTML, hypertext markup language. Don't even need to understand the complicated part, just that's what it's called. And that website needs hosting, and we'll give you some information on exactly where you can go and get resources for that we recommend. But and hosting is going to cost you about, depending upon what you're getting for it, $10 to $15 per month. That's it. Not a lot of money, right? So $10 to $15 a month. So that's one thing that you absolutely have to have, because this is the way people find you on the web, is that you have to have a website, and you of course been to websites, and there's about 1 billion of them out there now. But this is a requirement for having business, but not a lot of money. And you can learn to build a website yourself, or you can buy stuff that's pre-built, which we'll talk about as we go along, but this is one requirement. Another requirement that you're going to absolutely want to have is what's called an autoresponder, because as we'll be talking about, this is how you send email to people, both in an automated follow-up fashion and in a one-time blast. And many of you have been on my email list or certainly are now and are getting a lot of email from me, because this is a very profitable thing to do. And your autoresponder is going to cost you about $20 a month, and that's absolutely well worth it. As your list gets bigger, it will cost more, but that's a good problem. I pay a lot of money to have email delivered because I have a big list, but I make way more money than that autoresponder actually cost me to run. And so these are the requirements to get online. Not a whole lot. You, of course, will need a product. We'll talk about what kind of products and everything else to have, but you might even just end up not even selling your own product to get started with. You might sell products that other people have created and just take a commission, in which case you don't have to have any product at all. And I'll describe all of that, but it is not required that you have inventory or anything really complicated as part of this. Then when we go, and this is one of the greatest advantages of the internet, is when it comes to marketing. See, the kind of marketing you want to be focused on is what's called direct response marketing. And direct response marketing is where you run an ad, and that ad is going to be focused on getting someone to respond. So it's getting somebody to become a lead or getting to somebody to come and buy something. And so that's the only kind of ads you ever want to run. You don't want to run ads to brand. You don't want to run ads to educate. You want to run ads that make you money. So your goal when you run an ad is, let's say you spend $20 on advertising today. You want to have $20 is a cost. Then what you want to have is you want to have that $20 turn into more than $20 as soon as possible. Might be the end of the day, might be 5 days, depends upon what you're selling in your sales cycle. We want to do that. And the way that we can do this is because online we can measure exactly what's going on with our advertising. I can spend $20 today on advertising when I'm going to and pay, let's say, 20 cents a click to get traffic and know that I'm going to get clicks at the end of the day, whether or not those clicks turned into money. And because I can do that, that means I could throw up a website, spend a few dollars, less than $100 to get an initial indication of whether or not something works. Now think about this. Could you do anything else in the world to start a business where you could go out there and say, hey, listen, let's run a test for $100 and find out whether or not this works? The answer is no, you can't do that. And this is a fabulous thing because it means you could go out there and run a test for a few bucks, and I'm going to give you a simple hint. We'll talk a lot about different marketing and different things in the 10K Club, but I'm going to give you a simple hint. When you run a test, here's how it works, okay? If you spend $20 and when you're done your marketing cycle, whether it's a day, a week, whatever it is, you have $30 in profit. Well, let's call it income, but so let's just call that income. So you have a profit of $10. That's a good thing. And you know what that means you do? You do it again and again and again and again. See, anytime you can spend 20 and make 30, so you net 10, you want to do that every day. Okay? This is, now I think you think I'm being funny. This is the power of the internet. You get to do this over and over again. You spent 20 today and you got 30 tomorrow, you spend 40 and see if you get 60. You spend 40 and get 60, then you go spend 60, spend 80, spend 100. You start spending more money as you find out what's profitable. Now, similar way, let me tell you something. Let's say you go out and you spend $20 on an ad and you get zero. Get absolutely skunked, which is unusual, but spending $20 allows for a lot of variation in what's going to happen. The more money you spend, the more you get averages. But if you go spend $20 on an ad and you get zero, unless you think something's broken or there's some other reason, you do not do it again. You do something different. You run a different ad. This is one of the secrets to marketing. It's called testing. It's a very important thing, and that's why I use the term test down here, because when you go out and you run a test, what you're doing is you're giving yourself the opportunity to succeed. So you run a test. If it works, you do it again. If it doesn't work, you try something different. And as you find things that work, it's not like I'm saying, go mortgage your house to run tests, or go out and buy an office building to run a test. You're spending very little money. You're able to run a test. When you run a test, then you give yourself the opportunity to succeed. And when these things work, then you do them again and again and again and again. My business is run on a series of tests. We started out small, and as we tweaked and refined, then things got better and better and better. We made more and more money. So the internet is truly the greatest money-making opportunity ever created in the history of mankind. It's absolutely amazing. You and I are lucky to be alive during this time and have this opportunity. It's really just amazing how we're able to go ahead and have this internet and just do so many fabulous things as part of having it. Without this, we'd be hard-pressed to be able to go and so easily start a business. I want to give you a couple of formulas right now that are going to serve you in good stead. And you're in fact going to fall under one of these maybe by accident, whether you like it or not. The first one's probably going to surprise you a lot. This is what we call the formula for failure. And the formula for failure, you're probably surprised to see me actually tell you there's a formula for failure, but there is. And many people follow it. Some business schools teach it. It's not a good formula because pretty much going to guarantee that most people fail doing this. Formula for failure, step one, you might want to write these down so make sure you don't follow this formula, is create a product. And this is where you have a great idea, you go out, you create a product, you borrow money, you mortgage your house, you start a store, you hire employees, you go through all kinds of stuff to create a product. And then step two is you go try to find someone and shove it down their throat. Okay. Now, this is a really important concept, and some of you are probably laughing right now as I'm doing this, but see, this is the way people tend to think about ideas. I have a great idea. Man, everybody needs X. Well, if no one's making X and selling X, maybe everybody doesn't need X. See, because creating a product and then trying to shove it down somebody's throat means nothing. The marketplace only buys what people want to buy. We got to write this down because you got to make a note of this, okay? People buy what they want to buy. That's all they buy. They don't buy what you want them to buy. They buy what they want to buy. Anything else is just not going to happen. And you can't say, well, listen, if everybody knew and I educated the marketplace, everybody would buy this. Doesn't work that way. Many years ago, probably like 100 years ago, there were two companies that were selling dental products. And this is in an era, in a time when people had just really begun to understand oral hygiene and that brushing their teeth and take care of their teeth was a good thing. So I know it's hard to believe that we didn't do this all the time, but we didn't. And there were two different companies, and these two companies had different philosophies as to how they would approach the marketplace. And so the first company said, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to run a lot of ads. And in all of our ads, we're going to educate people on why it's important that they brush their teeth. And so we're going to do all this education, and we're going to teach the marketplace, and as the marketplace gets smarter, they're all going to go and they're going to say, man, this is really, really great. We are able to learn to brush our teeth. And then the company said, after we educate them, okay, then we're going to tell them to buy our stuff. So they said, hey, we're going to educate, which is a very expensive thing. And after they know that they should do this, then we're going to sell them our stuff. The other company took a different tact. And they ran ads that basically said, to people who brush their teeth. Okay? If you're somebody who brushes your teeth, guess what? We want to sell you our toothbrushes and toothpaste. One of those companies went on to become very successful. The other one died a very painful death, and you probably guessed by now. This company, number one, got completely slaughtered. Because you cannot afford to go train the marketplace and educate the marketplace or anything else. Doesn't work. You can spend hundreds of millions of dollars and not do that. But if you went to people who already brushed their teeth and said, look, if you brush your teeth, you're a smart person, you need to use our toothbrush, it's better. Now you have a chance of selling to people. But here's another truism, and this is going to be upsetting to many of you, is this. Okay? A better product is not the answer. Okay? Better product does not equal a win in the marketplace. You probably have experienced this yourself, working with other people or anything else, that when you are in the marketplace and you're saying, man, you know what, we have a better product, we have better service, we have better location, how come we're not outselling the other guys? Because here's what wins in the marketplace. It's not the better product, it is very simply marketing. If you market and sell better than the competition, then you win the battle. Probably in your town, there's a great pizza joint. But that great pizza joint probably is not the busiest place in town, probably doesn't have the most volume. Probably the most volume in your town is split between Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's. How come? They're the biggest pizza companies. Why are they the biggest pizza companies? Because they have the marketing down. They know how to run the TV ads, the placement ads, the magazine ads, the newspaper ads. They do all that stuff. And so because they have better marketing, they sell more pizza than the good pizza place. And this is almost universally true. And so you have to understand, it's not about having a better product, and you should have a good product, but that's not what's going to win the day. What's going to win the day is learning to be a better marketer. The good news is that most people really suck at marketing. So even if you get a little bit good, you can make a lot of money. If you got really good, you can make a boatload of money. And so that is one of the big differences in all of this. So now that we've depressed you with the formula for failure, let's work on getting ourselves the formula for success here. And we can do that. And this is so much more fun as a formula. And so that's what we're going to do now, is get our formula for success.